Welcome to episode 3 of Application Nation. Today we are hearing from a nonprofit company.
What we do is we help pay bills for families with cancer. It's really what we do at the end of the day. So the families are nominated to us by their social worker.
And I included 3 people in this episode, so it's different than the last 2, but I think it'll be really exciting and very insightful to all of you. They are 3 people that I worked very closely with in my second co-op at Drexel University: John Farley, Judy Swahl, and Amy Seybold. They are amazing people, and they will be providing a lot of advice and just the inside look of how apps enhance and even hurt a nonprofit company. First, I asked what their general view and point of view of apps and their personal and professional use so that we could set the stage for this podcast. So first we have Amy, then John, then Judy.
I don't know. I think of myself as pretty old school with that kind of stuff. Like I still catch myself going to like websites for stuff I need and thinking that way. But I will say more recently, I've been getting apps on my phone for ease of use. And it really does make things more convenient. And I mean for that, like banking, like now I can do that online. Like I used to drive to the bank and like drop something off, and now like you don't need to do that. But, and I know that's been around forever, but to me, my first thought is like the old school way that, I always knew how to do it. But I do think the apps that I have personally make things easier, quicker, more efficient. I think the only downside I would say is that you sometimes feel tied to your phone because everything is an app on your phone. So that to me is, I think, a negative, but I do see the ease of use with a lot of different apps that I use personally.
Yeah, I would agree with Amy. I think I'm into data. I'm into tracking things. I love to be able to look and see how things are going real time. I think it's just a matter of playing that fine line of how much time you're saving from using apps and how much time you're spending now using apps that you probably didn't need to use. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you look at social media and how much time people waste on social media compared to, what's the goal is to help you connect to people. And sometimes people are not connecting to the people in their homes or households because they're so focused on those things. So I think there's definitely negatives. But I, agree with Amy that if there's something that can be done more efficiently or tracked, electronically, especially like numbers and functions and things that are just everyday use, it's so simple and so nice to have something that can do all that for you. But I think it's that fine line always of the time you're saving by using something to track something is, needs to not exceed the amount of time you're wasting analyzing that stuff or looking at the stuff that you might not have spent before.
As an older person in this group, initially it was definitely different to have to download an app to the phone. I think of my cell phone. It was a hassle remembering passwords, things like that, login information. But now that I'm accustomed to using apps, I think it's a filing system. It's keeps you organized. I use different apps for various things, so I think they're very convenient.
Now that we have the base of the demographic that we're speaking to and just the properties of them, so their ages and just their basic mindset of apps in their personal lives, I now wanted to divert the conversation to, in their particular department of bringing hope home, how they use apps and how it impacts that part of their company. So Judy and Amy come from the family side, whereas John comes from the development side and just overall business development. So it'll be interesting to hear both sides.
I'm Judy Swahl. I'm the Family Outreach Coordinator with Bringing Hope Home. The app that I use mostly within the office is the Salesforce apps, which holds all of our family database. So without that application, I think our processes and our information would be where would we keep
all
it?
over the place.
So Amy helped build well, you were really a huge part of it.
So my name is Amy Seybold, and I'm actually kind of between two roles right now. So I don't know how to answer what my title is. So I'm our director of family outreach. So I work with Judy in our family department through our database we just talked about, and work with all the families and social workers that we help for the program. So really just administering the funds that we raise to our families. We used to do everything manually. It was very, paper based, and fax machines were involved, which now seems like a foreign concept, but we built this with two volunteers that really handled like the tech side of it. But we transitioned to this Salesforce app probably in 2014, I would say. And to Judy's point, it's a central database where we can keep all of our family applications, all of our data, information on the hospitals and social workers that we work with, the bills that we pay through the organization for the families we help with cancer, copies of the bills that they submit to us are held there. And it just allows everything to talk to each other too. So we can easily extract that information as we need to or add to it.
I mean, it's really our lifeline to all of our information.
Yeah. And then, so like there's obviously that program, but then there's also an app, a physical app on our phones that goes along with that. And just for me, we can access anything on the fly that we need wherever we are. And there's been times, our CEO will be stepping into a meeting and say, hey, can you let me know how many PICO bills did we pay for families? And I'll be in my car and I can quickly look that information up and run a report right on my phone. So again, it's back to that like ease of use, getting the data that you need in real time, and just keeping everything in one central location, which has been unbelievable. I can't imagine if we were still faxing applications in and working Excel spreadsheets like we were.
It's just learning the technology around it was the challenging part for me.
Yeah.
But once you learn that, I mean, there's so much more that we could probably do with Salesforce that we don't even know about. But for the most part, like to Amy's point, we can run reports on any data that is needed. Once you learn how to do it.
Yeah.
I'm still working
I would
on
say that's probably the toughest part is the technology piece. And like there is a little bit of a learning curve, and not just for us on the back end, but we have to have interaction with our social workers who refer the families to our program, an application through and nominating those families to our program who are in need of financial assistance. And this database we're talking about, all the information dumps into there and is kind of housed there. So, there's always new social workers who a new person could be hired at, the University of Penn or whatever hospital, and they're just finding out about us as a resource, and they'll call us to say, I have this family, how do I nominate them to your program? And we have to kind of almost go through like a quick training with them of, here's what you do, here's the password you need, here's the link you'll have to go to. And usually I'd say the first time there's like some questions about attaching documents or different things like that. But I think once somebody does it one or two times, it's pretty easy to pick up on. But I would say that's the only, not negative, but a little bit of a roadblock is for first time users. There's like a little bit of a learning curve for people.
Have you guys been able to have more families with this software?
Absolutely. Yep. It has made us so much more efficient. So, 2014 and before, when we didn't have this launched, people were faxing paper applications to us. And what we would have to do is manually enter all of that data into one big Excel spreadsheet and then trying to run reports off of that. Did Judy enter stage 2 cancer as 2 numerically? And did I write the number 2? And now our data isn't going to show up the same way, like just little different things like that. It was very manual. And then the amount of time it took us to then process a grant application and say, okay, Allie, you're the family we're helping. You want us to pay your PICO bill. We now have to manually type out all of your bill information, send it to our bookkeeper in an email. The way it's set up now is we have reports that are set to run weekly. So our bookkeeper can just say, hey, here's the families that you talk to, account information. It has allowed us to absolutely scale our business, help more families, and really just get the help out in a faster way. Really, it's been unbelievable, really. And then I'm transitioning right now into an operations role. So my title with that will be Chief Operations Officer. And that involves more of like the day-to-day interactions for the company and our processes behind the scenes. So one example, Ellie, I was going to give you with that, at least how apps have kind of made life easier. So I work with our HR consultant. So a lot of our team, has sick time, PTO, different things like that they can use if they want to take vacation or they're not feeling well, whatever it is. And stepping into this role, it was a really manual process. So people would fill out a form to say, hey, I'm taking these 2 days off. They would get it approved by their supervisor. Then the supervisor would email me. I track it. Then they would email our bookkeeper and she would track it on your paycheck. So there was a lot of different back and forth. And we were always checking, like, do we have the same numbers for everybody? I have that Judy has 4 days left. Do you have that too? We've been working with our HR consultants to basically get a portal set up through our payroll company that employees can go in and request their time off in this portal and we can approve it and it's done. So it saves probably like 4 emails back and forth. Yeah, we're getting ready to learn more about how it's going to work today, actually. We've kind of been building it out over the past few weeks, but just the ease of putting the request in and having it approved. So our payroll company is called Prime Pay. That's who we use for payroll. So it's basically a portal that they have available to their clients. And we've been able to kind of customize that with them. So just a small example, but as our company gets bigger, more and more people are going to have time to use and there's going to be more requests and changes.
And it's almost like these apps let your company grow more than
absolutely. Yeah. So we couldn't grow without those technology pieces in place. So it just seems like a little change now, but if we doubled in size in the next 2 to 5 years, think of how much back and forth that's cutting out for everybody involved.
Yes. Yeah. My name is John Farley and I am the Director of Advancement at Bringing Hope Home. So I work on the income side, making sure we have a strategy in place and are executing our goals to make sure we are raising the money we need to help the number of families we plan to help in the beginning of the year. For how we work with technology at Bringing Hope Home on the development fundraising side, and I'll use the word development instead of fundraising a lot, but they're synonymous with each other. We have a lot of different applications we have to use because we have to have 2 things in mind. One, we have to know from a staff perspective who our donors are and how much they gave and when they gave and why they gave. And then on top of that, we need to have a good experience for every one of our donors when they make a transaction with our organization. And since our organization is so varied in how we raise money, there's a lot of different opportunities to bring technology into play in terms of the actual fundraising, the transaction of somebody saying, I care about your mission, I want to give a gift. And what does that look like? And each event is very different. So we work with multiple applications and all of that feeds into our donor database because that has to be accurate as well. So we need to track how people gave to us. So and a lot less people are using cash these days. So it's almost all virtual transactions of money. So we need to make sure it's going to the right place. And then as a nonprofit, we need to provide each individual that gives us a gift a tax receipt so that they can claim a nonprofit gift on their taxes if they need to. And then we need to be held accountable for how much money we bring in as well through an audit, internal audit. We get audited every year as an organization. So how we track our donors and how much they gave and when they gave and why they gave is through a system called Donor Perfect. And that system has 23,000 donors in it. We track, like I said, all their contact information, every gift they made, when they made a gift, why they made a gift, our contacts with them, whether we sent emails to them, phone calls to them, had sit-down meetings with them. And then how those gifts end up in there is a couple different ways. We use some of their Donor Perfect has a few platforms to take in information. So a lot of our crowd fundraising, peer-to-peer asking through our schools use a lot of that. So a student may do a fundraising for benefit Bringing Hope Home and ask their friends and family to donate on their behalf. That goes right through one of their CrowdRise, which is their platform that they use in Donor Perfect. And then all that donation information just dumps right into Donor Perfect. So whether they're an old donor, they update their donor profile with new donations, or if they're a new donor, they get added to the system with why they gave. And then our events are very interactive. We have online bidding, mobile bidding, for our silent auction items, and some of our big events, our Great Guys Dinner, as well as our LBL Fashion Show, have 300 plus people, and they'll give everybody will be signed into their phone at the time, giving through an app called Give Smart, where you can actually make live bids and find out if you got outbid on items. So it's a very interactive, fun thing for attendees to do. And then after the event, we have to look and see all the money that came through that application and get that into Donor Perfect. Right now, it's still a very manual process to get that in there. There is some upload, download type things that we can do. But we just keep finding that guest interaction, the donor interaction, is so positive with GiveSmart that it's worth the back end piece that we do. So like I said, we have two functions we always have to look at: what is easiest, most convenient, and scalable, as you saw with the family department. What can we do, not just now, but what can we do 5 years from now at 5 times the number of donors? So it has to be scalable. And then, two, what is the donor experience? Because if it's great for us, but the donor gets in there and it's clunky and they don't know what's going on, or they can't figure out, they have to do a username and password every time they sign in, that's not going to be great, a great experience. And that would turn people away. And then if we, lose donors or lose an opportunity for a donation, then that could hurt us. Another platform we use is for our runs. It's something called Run Sign Up. And that's for, we host anywhere from 2 to 3 run walks a year. And it's a great platform in terms of getting us ready for the actual race. So we have all the runners' information, and then we can give them bibs through an app on our phones when they show up. They run the race, their bib is connected to the person that ran, and then we get their results. They can get their results. So it's very user-friendly in terms of you're a walker or runner participant. In terms of our information, we only track if somebody makes a donation through that site. So it doesn't interact well with our donor database, but we know it's so positive experience for our walkers and runners and our timers as well. So we still use a separate system for that. And then I guess the last piece was if we're at an event and somebody wants to make a gift but doesn't have cash on them, 2 different platforms we use. One is Pay Anywhere, which is similar to a Square type app. You can plug into your phone or an iPad, and you can swipe a credit card right through there. And then what has become extremely popular in the last probably 2 years is Venmo. And so we have a Venmo account, and it's every single event. It's getting more and more popular. We just had a golf outing on Monday, and there was a ton of people that just said are familiar with it, are using Venmo. And so, but that doesn't automatically dump in our donor database as well. So that's a manual download, upload as well. So that's some work on our end, but there's never a reason where somebody's at one of our events and wants to give, and we say, do you have a credit card? Do you have Venmo? Do you have cash? Because we can figure out a way to make this work.
Has there been a difference by using these platforms?
It lowers the barrier to no. I can't give right now. So there's only reason somebody wouldn't be able to give is because they don't want to give.
Okay.
But if they want to give, there's no reason they can't, because we have every barrier taken down in front of them. So I think it does increase the amount of money we make at the events. I think it is positive for the donor, a great donor experience. But like I said, it is a little complicated on the back end sometimes on the staff side, and scalability, like trying to look at, even right now, we're trying to look at what 3-4 years from now, what that looks like. And we know we need to have a platform that does all those things. There's not one that's out there right now, but ones that might be able to take on more of that. It's really convenient for us because we know we can't do what we're doing now at a ×5 scale without adding significant number of staff members to help us with the back end work.
Right. So it's almost like you would need more staff members in order to help the company grow, even by using these platforms.
Yes, for sure. If we want to continue to grow, we're going to need some additional help.
Because the piece, John, and you don't even really touch on this, I don't think, is every dollar in, we have to give a charitable receipt to every donor who makes a donation. So having all these pieces integrated together and dumping mainly into one system, whether it does it automatically or, to John's point, some are like a download and upload situation, we can have those receipts pre-built. There's a template that goes out that pulls your, Allie as the donor, your name, your address, what you donated towards, how much you donated, our tax ID number, and then we can just generate those and send them out through email. So it really is just the process beginning to end is so much more streamlined through all of these things being integrated together.
Wrap up on this last question that you guys can each briefly touch on, but you've all been there for a while with Bringing Hope Home. So when did you guys decide to using these platforms? Does that just come with the company growth, or when did you guys see that change? More donors and more families and more people?
I think on the family side, it really came out of necessity. We were helping more people and we saw how manual our process was. I will say though, for us, it took a fresh set of eyes coming in to kind of push us to that next point, because we were doing things how we did them for, a couple of years. And we had a volunteer come in to work with us who was helping with data entry. So some of that manual, typing into an Excel from a faxed application. And he was like, this is crazy. And we were like, well, we don't know anything different. Mm-hmm. And he kind of, pushed us a little bit in a good way to say, hey, let's look into these other opportunities. This is what I've done in my business. I can help you with this. So I think it was having the right people in place to help push that. But definitely, I think it was out of necessity. I would say that, we built that.
Great.
And John, probably the same for Donor Perfect too.
Yeah, when I first came to the organization in 2015, they just got Donor Perfect. So they were doing everything through Excel, which mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But the key, I think also is that when you get it, you have to use it. So we're not even using Donor Perfect to its fullest ability as of now. And definitely we're not when I first came to the organization. So, you could have the fanciest apps out there, but if you're not going to invest your time and energy and training for your staff and understanding how to best utilize it, then you're really wasting money as well as time and resources, because that's the whole point of it, right? Is to make your life easier. Mm-hmm. So, we saw that integrate, and then I'm constantly bombarded with salespeople with different products out there that will solve all of our issues as an organization. There is no silver bullet though. So I know, and within 5 minutes of talking to these salespeople, they know as well that their product doesn't solve all of our issues. But it is a constant evaluation, because all these things do cost money, and you always have to weigh out what the cost is between, your whole staff learning a new product, our bookkeeper learning a new product. Nothing's apples to apples. It's a lot of investigating, a lot of this, and then they have different contracts expiring at different. You always have to be learning what's out there. You always have to be listening to what's out there. You always have to be evaluating your needs, and then really just kind of taking a good faith jump sometimes about, what's going to be the next best thing for the organization to get to the next level of where you want to be, and you just kind of have to always be listening, always be evaluating, and
right.
Seeing. Are they meeting the needs?
And just like Amy was saying, is it takes a fresh set of eyes, because you guys are so used to doing things one way that I think it takes someone to come in and be like, this can be easier, this can be more efficient. But sometimes it's the research, the investigation, because there's so many new products out there. Like, people are discovering a new one each day, like creating something. So,
and Allie, you mentioned earlier too, even with this podcast, like being forced to be uncomfortable is actually a good thing. You tend to stay with what you know for a while, because you don't, want to go into uncharted territory or have to learn a new product can seem like a daunting task. But I think it's just looking at what the investment of your time is in the beginning and how it's going to play out and benefit you in the long run. And there are costs associated to these new products too. And I know early on when we tried to switch to some of these, we're like, oh my gosh, this is so much money. But when you really look at how much time it's saving you and your users and what the benefits are at the end, It's that happy user experience, like John said. It's getting away from manual entry, manual tracking, and really it's scaling your business and growing in the way you want to. You really need to have the technology pieces in place. It's a big thing we've learned to be able to take it to the next level.
Thanks to Amy, John, and Judy, we now know how apps are used in a nonprofit environment and the growth and harm that it has in their business. They provided so much information, and I'm so grateful that we got to hear from such amazing people. So let's give it up for them and stay tuned for episode 4 of Application Nation.